Games Workshop has been facing massive scrutiny ever since fans figured out the female Custodes retcon and they tried to gaslight us, saying, oh, well, it's always been this way and you all didn't understand the lore. And of course, the media is running defense for them, attacking any fans that are critical of the changes made. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. Now, of course, it's not very surprising to see the media running defense for Games Workshop, and it's just really pathetic to see because instead of actually giving us credit and saying, hey, listen, the way that Games Workshop responded to the questions asked about the female Custodes, they decided to gaslight fans. They didn't defend us at all whatsoever here. Instead, they're attacking us, saying that people critical are neckbeards and also that we're just bigots. This is a PCGamer article that's titled Warhammer 40K has slightly more women in it now, and the neckbeards aren't happy. People are upset not because there's more women in Warhammer. There have always been females in Warhammer, like the Sisters of Battle, for instance. The problem is the fact that they took the Custodes and decided to insert women in order to meet DEI quotas in order to change the game. And that is the problem, is that not only did they decide to alter the existing lore, but they also decided to lie about it. It says since Warhammer 40K's 10th edition was released last year, each of the Wargames factions have been getting the traditional rules refresh in the form of a new codex book. The latest deals with the Adeptus Custodes, genetically engineered bodyguards of the Emperor so gigantic they make Space Marines look weedy. There are 10,000 of them, and in the past they've only ever been depicted as men. In this latest iteration, shock horror, at least 2 of the Custodes are women. Most players seem to have responded to this by shrugging and getting back to arguing about the new rules, but there's always a vocal minority who go on a tear. I wouldn't say thousands of people are the vocal minority here. I mean, yes, there are tons of fans of, Warhammer and people who play Warhammer, but you have to look at the percentage that is online. There have been major arguments online surrounding this change. There have been thousands of people and hundreds of thousands of people watching content, reading these articles, looking at videos. Instead, they decide to paint it as, oh, only a few people are upset, when that definitely is not the case. It says, though, there's always a vocal minority. The Mail Online ran a typically subtle and understated headline that declared it's wokehammer, and the meme community Grimdank has declared posts about femstodes will only be allowed for 1 week before they join the female Space Marine posts as a banned topic. Games Workshop's official response is a tweet that says, in regard to the female custodians, there have always been female custodians since the first of the 10,000 were created. This is not the case. They have always been males, and that's perfectly fine. It is okay to have male-only factions and female-only factions, but you need to keep it that way because that is the way that it's already been written. Now, of course, this entire article is whining and complaining about critical fans and the way that we have responded. Instead of just saying, hey, there's a lot of people who are upset about this, that's okay, they decide to call us neckbeards and say that we're just awful human beings who simply hate women, and that's the only reason why we are attacking these changes and why we are not happy with the changes being made. When you have established lore, you as a company also need to respect that. And yes, sometimes things get slightly changed around. Maybe there's only been 5 women in a faction and you add 10, but the problem is that you're going from 0 to 2 and you're lying about it. You're not being honest about these changes, and you're also not allowing people to decide discuss it because they're blocking people on social media, the official Games Workshop and the Warhammer account, but it's not very surprising to see the media going after fans of Warhammer yet again, simply because people are being critical of the changes, and this is constant. Whenever we, criticize something like Star Wars, for instance, an established property that has millions of fans, we get attacked for simply criticizing and asking questions about the changes that they're making and why they ultimately decided to make those changes. The media will go to bat for these companies no matter what the controversy is, because they want to stay on their good side, and they ultimately want sneak peeks, and they want PR material, and they want codes to video games, or they want early access to products, and it's so freaking pathetic. Instead of actually defending us every once in a while, they simply attack us. And we also recently saw this with Bell of the Lost Souls, another, fan site for things like TTRPGs. And they put up an article titled Warhammer 40K Only Bigots Hate Female Adeptus Custodes. And hey, I am a woman, and I think Warhammer is really freaking cool. But does that make me a bigot? Because I'm not a male, and I'm a female who happens to be critical of the Adeptus Custodes. The problem is that they only want an angle to attack men, and that is what they are doing in all of these articles. Oh, you're just bigots if you don't like the female Adeptus Custodes, and it's only, men complaining about it, which is totally and completely absurd. I have seen a plethora of females on social media criticizing these changes and also criticizing these websites, because what these websites are doing is absolutely pathetic by attacking us as fans yet again, simply for not being happy about this situation. The Bell of Lost Souls article also says that the setting has long been male-dominated, and this is not to say that there have been no women in the lore, but by and large it is a setting filled with men or over-the-top caricatures of men, and it's hardly a wonder that the player base has traditionally been largely male, and they're basically saying that by adding more females to the game, that will bring in a female audience, but I beg to differ, because in order to attract a female audience, you simply have to be creating an amazing product, and that will ultimately bring women in. What they should do is highlight the female-only factions or the majority female factions, like, again, the Sisters of Battle, and continue to add to their ranks, or maybe even add another faction that is very similar to them. Not take an existing faction like the Adeptus Custodes and completely alter them in order to push DEI. I mean, DEI corporate trends have been out of control over the past few years, and it's absolutely pathetic. That is not going to draw me in as a woman to this hobby, and it's no surprise really, because if you look at the shareholders, BlackRock and Vanguard hold 17% of the shares for Games Workshop, so it seems like there was definitely outside interference. And I also recently talked about the Amazon show and how apparently, according to leaks, so of course take them with a grain of salt, that Amazon really wanted them to do this, and Amazon pushed them and ultimately forced them to add female Custodes so that they could add them in the show and that they could highlight females in power armor, and that also apparently Henry Cavill is threatening to walk away from this project because of the backlash, and of course he's a big Warhammer fan, so he also isn't happy with these changes. Of course, take that with a grain of salt. That video will be linked down below if you want any other details, but right now Warhammer is in a very, very bad state, and instead of addressing all of this, Games Workshop has ultimately decided to be silent, which definitely is not a good look for them. I think there is a lot of fans that could, be quelled, their anger could be quelled if they decided to simply come out and make a heartfelt statement saying, listen, this is a direction we've wanted to go in for a really long time, and this, isn't going to hurt the lore at all. At least say something to help some of the backlash, but at this point, I think that the only thing that would ultimately kill the backlash is if they decided to change course and back up, but because this is already in the codex, I think it's full steam ahead for them. I don't see that happening. at all whatsoever. Of course, I will continue to keep my eye on this situation. But yes, now, of course, not only do we have Games Workshop completely disrespecting the lore and disrespecting fans, but we have the shill media coming out and calling us bigots, and also neckbeards for simply criticizing the changes that they've made. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.